Good evening, everybody. Or morning or afternoon, whenever you're watching this. If you're watching it, I guess if you're watching it, then it has to be a certain time of day. But anyway, hello, everybody. Hope everybody is well. I was so this is a solo one. Hopefully, it'll be short and sweet. I was not intending to do one on Gtii today. I was going to do one on Alpine. Actually, I was going to do one before that on the earthquake in Myanmar, Burma, wherever it is, which I may do, but not now. But did you know, just as I think this is an interesting point before we move on, that that fault that went underneath Mandalay, which is, I guess, the city that was close, the largest city that was closest to that earthquake, that particular fault system very closely resembles the San Andreas fault in southern. Well, that goes from the Salton Sea all the way up through California and then off the coast. It's like 800 miles. But they say that fault line very similar to the San Andreas fault, and I'm going to do a video on that because I'm obviously I'm living in Southern California, so I'm aware of earthquakes. Like if you lived in Kansas, you'd be aware of tornadoes, etc. So, but that's not why I'm here today, and obviously it's not legal advice. Please like, subscribe, share. Please share these videos if you can, and comments, whatever. Happy to read them, and also it spreads the word. Before I start, um, I'm going to say this because I think you'll understand when after I talk about this a little bit, that this is true. I really don't support anyone, nor am I paid by anyone. So honestly, the only reason I'm doing this, maybe because I'm a moron, but the only reason I'm doing this is obviously to help shareholders. And I'm a shareholder, but I find pleasure in trying to help. And to the extent I can, I do that. And I'm not being paid by anyone. So it is what it is. And that's fine. So if I'm critical of somebody, it's not because I have anything against that person per se. It's because I may be concerned about the interests of shareholders. And that's why I might express something. Most times I don't. I just kind of keep stuff to myself because I don't, most times it won't necessarily be helpful. So I just shut up if it's not meaningful. And sometimes, like tonight, I'm going to talk about something that has been annoying me, and I'm hoping to effectuate some kind of action by this. But of course, no, and it's not about we're getting screwed. So just hang on, you'll hear me out, and then you can kind of make your own decisions before you speculate. Because we speculate a lot. All of us speculate a lot. So before we start, of course, the reason why some politicians like to stand on their records is to keep voters from examining it. This insomnia patient was such a fervent vegetarian that he counted carrots jumping over the fence. And last but not least, I thought this was a tricky one, but I actually corrected it and changed the joke a little bit. My father is allergic to cotton. He has a new bottle of pills he can take, but he can't get them out of the bottle. Think about that one. Being allergic to cotton with a new bottle of pills, what stands in your way? Anyway, those are some great jokes. I hope you appreciated that. This now I'm talking about Gtii. So I'm focusing just on Gtii and not Alpine, because Alpine, I think JR and I are going to do another live stream on Alpine tomorrow. We will see sometime this week, early in the week. But for quite some time, so months prior to AI Versity being involved, after probably the first receiver's report, I was and let me back up. So I've been involved in this for a couple of years, probably a couple of years now. Yeah, a couple of years now, a little more than a couple of years. And I spoke to a bunch of people and got background on everybody, and kind of with that background, we were obviously able to advance things, but part of it, we also understood kind of what potential leverage we might have. And this is before we knew all about all the, is my favorite word, this is before we knew about all the shenanigans that were going on. But we also understood that that notwithstanding whatever happened, that there were some weak spots, and if you pushed, that might be a strategic advantage. So that's kind of like the base where we're coming from. And that issue and that information came out 2 years ago. So I was aware of that for quite some time, and I knew that there wasn't just me. There were many people who I spoke with who believed the same thing, that if you pressed certain issues, that would give you a lot of leverage and would make people uncomfortable and might really shift the tide. So that's kind of how we approached, and I thought about that for quite some time. So we went through, then the lawsuits filed, the receivers appointed. I'm sure prior to that, although I couldn't swear to this, but I'm pretty sure prior to that, I'm sure I discussed the issue of, because we knew there was property in California, real property in California. And we also knew, or at least we thought, that that might somehow be connected to GTII. Now, we didn't know at that time specifically, but because of what was going on, we thought, wow, it's very possible that's connected to GTII. Somebody, I know somebody did a title check at some point in time and showed it was connected to some trust that was connected to the people that are involved or nearly involved with regard to GTII, as I recall. So that's still quite some time ago. So, but we were aware of the connection, we were aware of the leverage, people were aware of, we're talking tactics, how could you best obtain the relief for everybody that we were entitled to. So this is not like we're fabricating anything. This is just taking the existing facts and maximizing the benefit of those facts, and to the extent that legitimate tactics that can be used to really pressure the other side, then those should be used. And that was discussed, and this is not complicated, in terms of a legal situation, I didn't think it was very complicated. So I discussed that, or I don't know if I discussed it, or it was discussed, or it came up in conversation. But I know, I don't remember if I discussed it directly, but I know, I feel very comfortable with this statement. I know that our counsel, the counsel that's representing us in Nevada, they understand the remedy that I'm talking about. The remedy being filing an action in California against the property that's located in California. There's real estate located in California. There still is real estate located in California. One of those properties, I believe, is in Larkspur, which is in Marin County. So it's not a cheap area. And so I discussed it early, months ago. And then once the receiver got involved, I know I discussed it multiple times, including today, where I sent an email, kind of irritated. Actually, I think I said I'm pissed. And it's not complicated. Since I do real estate litigation in California, I feel, and it wouldn't be me, by the way, doing the proceeding, but I feel comfortable that with the knowledge that this could be done, and that an action could be filed in California, whether it be in state court or in federal court, and that action would be for constructive trust. Constructive trust means, in essence, this property doesn't belong or shouldn't belong to this person. It belongs to somebody else. So let's keep it until there's a decision made, a final decision as to the rightful, who should be entitled to it. Also, obviously, based on what the receiver's reports say, and there's 3 reports, and I think it's all over the reports, the receiver believes that that property was improperly obtained through either stock or the sale of stock of GTII. So in essence, that's GTII's property. And I don't think the receiver's report says anything to the contrary. So if it's GTII's property, and there's 3 reports of the receiver that I think would back up that, and I think the receiver would testify to that. I think the receiver's counsel would testify to that. I would testify to that. So easily in a day, literally a day. So if a client came in to me and they had an urgent problem, and this was the problem, let's say this is the problem. They come in, they say, listen, there's a property that I think I'm entitled to. Um, but obviously, the concern is every day that goes by, that person might sell that property, might borrow money against that property, might do something to make it more difficult to extract the value out of that property. So if somebody came to me with that problem and said, I have concern about a piece of property, literally, I would file something the next day. A complaint would be filed in court. And on top of that, a lis pendens would be recorded. Lis pendens is basically a notice to the world that there's a lawsuit against that property that affects either title to or the right to possession in the real property. I feel pretty comfortable in this area of law, just as we're talking. And I think based upon the receiver's reports, based on everything we see, there is a reasonable argument to be made that this action fits those criteria. And everybody thinks, or a lot of people have thought that this property was a leverage point. And on multiple occasions, I've asked that they pursue it, file an action, and record a lis pendens. As of today, as far as I know, it still hasn't been done. There's no, and again, my opinion, this is all opinion. Somebody might disagree with me. And even though I'm a real estate litigator in California, somebody might have a different opinion. But I think it exposes shareholders to a risk. And there's no justification. In my mind, there is no justification for tomorrow this not being recorded and our rights and interests in that property be protected. And if somebody objects to the contrary, let them object, let them show us why they're entitled to it, and let them spend the money. Let them spend the money on legal fees. So I'm doing this to kind of, I put the tweet out earlier. I said the same things, obviously copied the receiver on the tweet. I'm putting this out. I will copy the receiver when I post this also. There is no reason it should not be done tomorrow, Monday. And again, there is a risk every day of not taking action because at some point in time, they're going to try to extract the money from that property. It's just a matter of time that will happen. And again, in my opinion, inexcusable. And I've said it. I'm just open about it. Inexcusable. It's not been done. And I presented this on a couple occasions to the Receivers Council, and no one from the Receivers Council gave me any legal reason that it could not be done. So if somebody told me, by the way, you can have a legal dispute with another attorney, they might have a different opinion, and maybe they're right. That's possible. This is not a case. Maybe I'm incorrect, but to this point in time, nobody has indicated that I'm incorrect. So being that it's an area that I'm comfortable with, and being that no one has indicated to the contrary, I feel fairly comfortable that that's what should be done. And again, no excuse for not being done. And if, again, I think the receiver should be embarrassed that it's not been done to this point. And I hope it's done this week or it's in process. If it's in process and just nobody's told me about it, that's a different issue. That's possible. Listen, always possible. It's in process and they just haven't said anything. I don't know why that would be the case. And once it would be filed in court, it would be a public document. So I feel comfortable it's not been filed in court, or else we would have seen it already. But otherwise, no justification, and it should be done this week, no matter what. I don't care what type of resolution is being negotiated. And I have contact with AIversity. It's not like I don't. So I feel I have a general idea of what's going on. And I believe everybody's working in good faith to try to get something done. But that might be, and I think Mr. Forster posted a tweet today, said it was kind of like a novel approach, and they were going to require the either consent or approval by the SEC in the way they're thinking about doing it. That's great. And I even spoke to him about that. And if that were, I don't know specifically what they're doing, but in general, and if that works, it's great. However, that shouldn't be the only thing we should be relying upon. And our strongest point is based upon what the receiver says in his reports. And the receiver says there was an abundance of shenanigans going on, and the receiver should use that as leverage, not be passive and not aggressive. In this case, listen, if somebody commits fraud, and according to the receiver, they committed fraud, the cards are all in your hand, not otherwise. You don't have to be nice. Let those, whatever you want to call them, let them come chasing you for consideration and mercy, not the other way around. And this, again, this is not new. This should be done. This should have been accomplished months ago. This, what I'm asking now. And no justification, nothing new. They've known about it, just haven't done it and haven't explained themselves. And it pisses me off. And they should take care of it this week. And if not, I want an explanation why not. How's that? So have I yelled enough? I think I've yelled enough. So that's where it is. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to work this thing out. Doesn't mean that. It just means that there's a strategy that's an obvious strategy that they haven't taken advantage of, that's obvious without explanation. And I've asked. I've sought it out. You know, when you ask somebody a dozen times for something, at some point in time, enough's enough. So I wouldn't be doing this video if I got a straight answer, or even like a bullshit answer that, I might disagree with. Haven't gotten that. No justification. To the receiver, get it done. That's all I have. Have a good night to everybody. Be well. We'll be doing, I think JR and I will be doing something tomorrow talking about Alpine. And I'm going to do something tomorrow talking about the earthquakes. I'm interested in earthquakes. So I guess this was a little earthquake, but there'll be a bigger earthquake. Talking about bigger earthquakes. Anyway, all you out there, be well. Take care. Hopefully this kind of gave you some flavor of why I was annoyed. And again, it's strictly a legal strategy, and I think it's a legal strategy that can still be taken care of, should have been done, and should already been done, but still can be done and still could have a real positive impact. So to all you out there, be well, take care, have a great Sunday night or morning, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow with JR. I think so. I think it's